Hello there, you're following World News. I'm Yasin Rikti, and here's what's making the headlines. On the first day of the China-US summit, Trump described his talks with Xi as very positive and productive. Xi warned Trump of the danger of mishandling the Taiwan issue, and the White House said the two presidents agreed on the need to keep the Strait of Hormuz open. In developments regarding the truce between Iran and the United States, Washington says that Trump discussed the Iranian issue with Beijing and did not ask for its help, while Tehran confirms that it will not give up its sovereignty over the Strait of Hormuz at any cost. In Lebanon, coinciding with new Zionist airstrikes, the occupation forces issued evacuation warnings to several towns in the Bekaa Valley in southern Lebanon. Hezbollah confirmed targeting vital sites deep inside the Zionist entity. Welcome back to the details of our program. First in our news, Chinese President Xi Jinping welcomed US President Donald Trump in Beijing on Thursday as part of talks aimed at discussing key global issues, including trade, Iran and Taiwan. The two leaders met at the Great Hall of the People during Trump's two-day visit, with a military ceremony featuring the US and Chinese national anthems and a cannon salute. Chinese President Xi Jinping told US President Donald Trump during talks in Beijing on Thursday that their countries should be partners, not rivals. Xi said cooperation benefits both sides while confrontation harms them, adding that the world is at crossroads as he welcomed Trump on his first visit to China since 2017.
应对全球挑战。
The world has reached a new crossroads, whether China and the United States can overcome the so-called Thucydides trap and create a new paradigm of great power relations, whether we can work together to address global challenges and inject more stability into the world, whether we can focus on the well-being of the two peoples and the future of humanity and jointly create a better future for the relationship between the two countries, can be said to be the questions of history, the world and the people.
Chinese President Xi Jinping warned US President Donald Trump on Thursday that mishandling the Taiwan issue could lead to conflict between the two countries. According to China's state broadcaster CCTV, she described Taiwan as the most important issue in US-China relations, warning that any mistake could push ties into a dangerous situation and even trigger confrontation. US President Donald Trump described his talks with Chinese President Xi Jinping as positive and highly productive at a state dinner in Beijing. Trump said US-China ties are growing stronger and voiced hope for greater cooperation and prosperity while inviting Xi to visit the United States next September.
You and I have known each other now for a long time. In fact, the longest relationship of our two countries that any president and president has had. And that's, to me, an honor. We've had a fantastic relationship. We've gotten along. When there were difficulties, we worked it out. I would call you and you would call me. And whenever we had a problem, people don't know, whenever we had a problem, we worked that out very quickly. We're going to have a fantastic future together. Such respect for China, the job you've done. You're a great leader. I say it to everybody, you're a great leader.
US President Donald Trump told Chinese President Xi Jinping that the two powers would have a great future during talks in Beijing on Thursday. Speaking at the Great Hall of the People, Trump said US-China relations would become better than ever and expressed confidence in a strong future for both countries.
We had extremely positive and productive conversations and meetings today with the Chinese delegation earlier. And this evening is another cherished opportunity to discuss among friends some of the things that we discussed today, all good for the United States and for China. And it was a great honor to be with you.
The White House said US President Donald Trump held a good meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping in Beijing on Thursday. In a statement, the White House said both sides discussed ways to strengthen economic cooperation but made no mention of Taiwan, despite earlier warnings from Xi that mishandling the issue could lead to conflict between the two countries. The White House announced that US President Donald Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping agreed during talks in Beijing on Thursday on the need to keep the Strait of Hormuz open. In a statement, the White House said both sides stressed the importance of maintaining the free flow of energy through the strategic waterway. In a carefully choreographed display of diplomacy at the heart of Beijing, Xi Jinping and Donald Trump have set out both sides are calling new vision for relations between the United States and China, an effort to steady one of the world's most important partnerships. Nabil Khazini has the full story.
How carefully this meeting had been prepared could be seen in every detail, and this shows how important it actually is. The long red carpet stretching across the entrance of the Great Hall of the People, the military band standing motionless beneath Beijing's sky. And at the top of the sweeping marble staircase, Xi Jinping waiting for Donald Trump before the two men met beneath rows of Chinese and American flags. For a few moments, the choreography said everything. Two leaders, two rival powers, and a relationship now considered too important to collapse, yet too complicated to truly repair. Inside the Great Hall, both presidents spoke of a new vision for ties between Washington and Beijing, language designed to suggest stability at a time when tensions between the world's two largest economies continue to deepen. And this summit was never really about friendship. It was about management. Managing trade disputes that have reshaped global markets, managing technological rivalry over semiconductors and artificial intelligence, managing military tensions in the Indo-Pacific, and above all, managing the growing distrust now embedded in almost every level of the relationship. For Xi Jinping, the message was clear. China wants what it calls constructive strategic stability, competition without confrontation, pressure without rupture. Beijing is seeking relief from American tariffs and technology restrictions, while making clear once again that Taiwan remains its most sensitive red line.
Our two countries that any president and president.
For Donald Trump, the calculations were equally clear. Surrounded by senior American business and technology figures, the president arrived focused on trade access, investment, and preserving direct communication with Beijing, even as Washington continues trying to reduce dependence on China in critical industries. Yet despite the divisions, the tone throughout the meetings remained noticeably restrained. No dramatic breakthrough emerged today, no reset, no grand bargain. Instead, what both sides appeared to acknowledge was something far more realistic. That rivalry between China and the United States is no longer temporary. It is structural, global, and likely to define international politics for years to come. But beneath the ceremony and carefully managed symbolism inside Beijing's Great Hall, there also appeared to be agreement on one crucial point. Neither side believes confrontation is affordable, and neither side can afford to stop talking.
China's state news agency Xinhua reported that Chinese President Xi Jinping told American business leaders accompanying US President Donald Trump during his Beijing visit that China's stores would open even wider to foreign companies. According to Chinese state television, Xi met executives at the Great Hall of the People, including Elon Musk, Jensen Huang, and Tim Cook, of Apple. The meeting came a day after Trump said he would ask Xi to open China further to American companies. US President Donald Trump said Chinese President Xi Jinping told him that Beijing would not supply Tehran with military equipment. In an interview with Fox News on Thursday, Trump also said Xi expressed interest in reaching an agreement on Iran and that China agreed to purchase 200 Boeing aircraft. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said President Donald Trump discussed the war with Iran and tensions over the Strait of Hormuz with Chinese President Xi Jinping during a summit in Beijing, lasting more than 2 hours. In an interview with NBC, Rubio said the United States did not ask China for assistance regarding Iran, adding that Beijing opposed militarizing the Strait of Hormuz or imposing transit fees, a position he said aligns with Washington's views.
Did President Trump raise the issue of Iran with China?
He did, and it was important because the Chinese side said they are not in favor of militarizing the Straits of Hormuz and they're not in favor of a tolling system. And that's our position.
U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said the United States want China to pressure Iran to change its approach in the Gulf. In an interview with Fox News, Rubio said Washington hopes to convince Beijing to take a more active role in persuading Tehran to scale back its actions in the region.
Well, of all the countries of the world, economies are melting down because of this crisis in the Straits. They're going to be buying less Chinese product, and the Chinese exports are going to drop precipitously. So it's in their interest to resolve this. We hope to convince them to play a more active role in getting Iran to walk away from what they're doing now and trying to do now in the Persian Gulf.
U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said China will do everything it can to keep the Strait of Hormuz open, arguing that Beijing benefits from the waterway remaining accessible. In an interview with CNBC on Thursday, Bessent said China is likely to work behind the scenes with any party that has influence over Iran's leadership to ensure the key shipping routes stays open.
I think they're going to do what they can, and here China has a much bigger interest in reopening the strait than the U.S. does. China gets about a third of its energy needs from the Gulf, so a reopening of the strait benefits China. It's very much in their interest to get the strait reopened, and I think they will be working behind the scenes to the extent anyone has any say over the Iranian leaders.
Iranian Sami official Fars news agency reported on Thursday, citing a knowledgeable source, that Iran has begun allowing some Chinese vessels to pass through the Strait of Hormuz. The report said the move follows an understanding on protocols for managing this strategic waterway. Iranian First Vice President Mohammad Reza Aref said that the Strait of Hormuz belongs to Iran and has always been under its control, though Tehran has not fully leveraged it at times. In a social media post, Aref stressed that Iran will never give up control over the Strait of Hormuz, regardless of the cost, adding that in war, the side that succeeds in shaping the narrative is the one that ultimately prevails. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said the Strait of Hormuz remains open to all commercial vessels, provided there is prior coordination with Iranian naval forces and compliance with routes set by Iran's Ports and Maritime Organization. In an interview with Press TV, Araghchi said the strait is currently affected mainly by what he described as U.S. aggression and an illegal blockade in the region, expressing hope that the crisis would end with the lifting of what he called U.S. military pressure.
The Strait of Hormuz is now suffering first and most from the U.S. aggression and the blockade that they have imposed on it. As far as we are concerned, the Strait of Hormuz is open for all, commercial vessels, but they need to cooperate with our Navy forces. So we have not made any obstacles. It is Americans who have made blockade. And I hope that that could be ended by the removal of this illegal blockade imposed by America.
A U.S. official warned that Iran is dangerously close to producing highly enriched uranium that could be used for a nuclear weapon, saying it is only weeks away from reaching the technical threshold. Speaking at a hearing before the U.S. Senate Armed Services Committee, U.S. Energy Secretary Chris Wright said Iran's stockpile of enriched uranium puts it very close to weapons-grade levels, while noting that converting the material into an actual weapon would still require additional steps. The Zionist authorities issued evacuation warnings on Thursday to residents of 5 towns on the Bekaa Valley in eastern Lebanon and 3 towns in the south. The warnings covered the towns of Labaya, Sahmar, Tifahata, Kfar Melki, Yohmor, Ain al-Tineh, Humin al-Fawqa and Mazra'at Sinai as the military announced a series of airstrikes it said were targeting sites and infrastructure belonging to Hezbollah in southern Lebanon. Lebanon-based Hezbollah said on Thursday that its forces targeted Zionist positions and military vehicles in several areas in southern Lebanon. In a statement, the group said it carried out multiple operations, including shelling a new established Israeli military training site in southern Lebanon with artillery fire, claiming it hit its targets. It also said it struck a gathering of Israeli soldiers in the town of Ramesh, along with additional attacks in areas including Bain Trail and Al-Quzah, saying they achieved direct hits. Lebanon-based Hezbollah said broadcast video footage showing an attack targeting the Shraka base of the Zionist enemy. The United Nations Children's Fund UNICEF said that at least 59 children were killed or injured in Lebanon over the past 7 days, including 2 children from the same family who were killed with their mother in an airstrike on Bekaa. In a statement on Thursday, UNICEF called the figures a stark reminder of the serious violations and ongoing risks facing children. It added that since the ceasefire came into effect, at least 23 children have been killed and 93 others injured, bringing the total number of child casualties since March 2nd to 200 killed and 806 injured, averaging about 14 children killed or injured per day. Two Palestinians were killed and others injured on Thursday in Zionist fire in northern Gaza Strip. Local media citing Palestinian sources said an Israeli drone opened fire on a group of people in Gaza Street in Jabalia, killing 1 person and injuring others. Another Palestinian was reportedly killed by a sniper outside a clinic run by the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees, UNRWA, in Jabalia. The Palestinian Ministry of Foreign Affairs condemned the entry of Israeli National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir into the courtyards of the Al-Aqsa Mosque during heavy protection from Zionist forces, coinciding with the 78th anniversary of the Nakba. In a statement on Thursday, the ministry said the visit and accompanying actions, including raising Zionist flags inside the mosque compound and performing provocative rituals, part of a systematic policy aimed at imposing new realities by force in occupied East al-Quds. Algeria and Chad signed an agreement on Thursday to build a 40-megawatt power generation plant in Chad. In a statement, Algeria's Ministry of Energy and Renewable Energies said the agreement, overseen by Algerian Minister Mohamed Arkab and Chad's Minister of Water and Energy, reflects the two countries' shared political will to strengthen cooperation into a strategic partnership aimed at supporting development and improving energy security in Chad.
توجيهات السيد رئيس الجمهورية.
Following the recent meeting between the two heads of state, the President of the Republic issued directives. As you know, a team from Sonargaz traveled to N'Djamena last week to conduct a feasibility study for a 40-megawatt power plant. The study was completed by experts today. We are ready to move to the next phase, exporting the equipment to Chad. The foundation stone for the power plant's construction will be laid in the coming weeks.
This is a historic step for Algeria within the framework of South-South cooperation, the foundations of which were laid by President Abdelmadjid Tebboune and President Mohamed Idriss Déby Itno at their recent summit in Algeria. This is a historic step for Chad. The completion of this power plant represents a landmark in South-South cooperation. We have just taken another major step forward with the construction of this power plant. I extend my deepest gratitude to the Algerian government on behalf of the Chadian government and President Mohamed Idriss Déby Itno. I thank the Algerian government and the Algerian people. I thank President Abdelmadjid Tebboune for his sincere and successful support of African nations. Today, I discovered Algeria to be a great country, a country that does good.
On the third day of a visit to facilities of Algeria Sonatrach, a delegation from Niger's Ministry of Petroleum to the Algerian Civil Engineering and Construction Company in Boumerdès, the delegation received a detailed technical presentation on the company's activities and major energy projects, and also visited the Algerian Petroleum Institute, where they were briefed on its operations. In a rapidly evolving race to expand energy influence across Africa, Algeria's state group Sonatrach is accelerating its expansion into Africa's emerging energy landscape with a long-term strategic approach. From Libya to the Sahel and the Horn of Africa, Sonatrach is positioning itself as a major player in the continent's evolving hydrocarbon sector. Marma Abelaiwar has the full report.
The resumption of operations in the Ghadames Basin, including drilling programs and the development of discovered fields, has enabled the Algerian energy giant to regain a strategic foothold in one of North Africa's most resource-rich oil zones. Further south, Sonatrach is also consolidating its energy presence in Niger through a major exploration project in the Kafra region. The oil block is considered one of the most promising exploration zones in the Sahel, given its geopolitical extension and estimated hydrocarbon reserves. Sonatrach is also closely monitoring Mauritania's hydrocarbon basins as the company moves to expand its investment presence in West Africa. For the Algerian giant, the move toward Mauritania represents a natural extension of Algeria's African energy strategy, one centered on strategic partnerships and long-term opportunities in oil, gas, and energy infrastructure. In the Horn of Africa, Somali authorities have also expressed growing confidence in Algerian expertise. Mogadishu increasingly views Sonatrach as a potential strategic partner capable of contributing to the development of Somalia's untapped hydrocarbon resources, drawing on decades of Algerian experience in exploration and production. With growing technical and institutional weight, Sonatrach continues to expand its continental footprint, contributing to the development of integrated energy systems across Africa and reinforcing its position as a central player in the continent's evolving energy landscape.
This is the end of our news program. Thanks for your kind attention. See you in a moment for our special coverage.